How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another edition of the Tactical Empire. Guys, I am so excited today. I've got a fellow Ranger on here and a brother of mine who I am excited to introduce you to. He is a patriot and just a stand-up fucking guy that I have been wanting to get a hold of for a long time, and we've been missing each other for a few years. Greg Anderson, owner of Electric North Jiu-Jitsu, and also does a podcast, the Endless Endeavor podcast. He's a first form athlete. He's a father of 3 girls, which we were joking about offline, but we'll bring that into the conversation here in a moment. Greg, thank you so much. I appreciate your time this morning, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, man. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, we have very similar alignments on our mission, on what we're doing. I've been following you for years. Really, you had a viral video come out when you were a Tacoma cop, right?
No, it was in Seattle.
Seattle cop, because we were both 2nd Battalion, and you ended up staying up there and doing the Ranger thing, going into the police force locally there, which is totally normal.
Bro, yeah. I mean, I actually did the like cookie cutter route for a Ranger. I did the regiment for my enlistment. And then I went into military contracting because, when your ETS date's coming up, like, hey, re-enlist and we'll give you your E6. And I'm like, And then triple canopy was just starting at those days. It's like, hey, come with us and we'll pay you $30,000 a month. Like, oh, that's a thing,
No
so
shit.
I went and did that for 5 years, man. And
Really?
To tell you the truth, military contracting, if you would have asked me at the time, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. Like, dude, I'd work between 3 and 6 months out of the year, make $200K, and then have absolute freedom for the other half of the year. And at 24, 25 years old, I mean, bro, I would literally go work half the year and then come home and train jiu-jitsu and MMA the other half of the year. And like, that was the life, man.
Yeah.
But as life happens, 2009, I was actually deployed, and my wife sent me a Yahoo Messenger. The younger listeners won't even remember what Yahoo Messenger is. You remember you could send pictures back and forth.
Yeah.
And she sent me a pregnancy. She sent me a pregnancy test, and I was like, "Oh, well, this changes things." And she goes, "I can't have you gone 6 to 9 months a year and do the family thing alone." And dude, it was one of those things. Is like it was unexpected. It was an accident. I hadn't really put thought into it, but you know how it is in that moment. Like, yeah, bro, I can't keep living this life having a family back home. So that ended up being my last deployment, and then started thinking what route would give me the similar aspects that I got from regiment and contracting, the camaraderie, the training, the just waking up and wanting to get after it, all the stuff that like was fun when we were younger. And I thought law enforcement would give me that. And to tell you the truth, nothing could be further from the truth.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Oh man. That is fascinating. I went a different route. I thought I was very principled at the time. It's very interesting to see our maturity and how we look back on those historical things, because I didn't want to contract because I had a job in financial services that I could go back to after being active duty. And for me, contracting seemed too risky, and it wasn't too risky necessarily that I wasn't willing to take the risk. It was that I didn't feel purpose driven there, and I felt purpose driven in the military, right? Because I enlisted right after 9/11. And you were in Ranger school in 9/11, right?
That's right. Last day of Ranger school.
Yeah, that story is fucking awesome. I enlisted immediately after 9/11. And so like my service was purpose driven as I felt at the moment, right? Like
Yeah.
we've since gained a lot of knowledge on that situation and everything else. And now I'm like, holy fuck, I should have contracted the whole time as soon as I had the ability to do that. Cause that's all we were doing anyway.
Yeah,
I was just a broke man's hired gun.
for sure, man. No, I mean, it's hindsight's 2020. And I look back on that crazy period of time. And again, as we mature and look back on the wars and look back on government and look back on what we were doing, why we were there, all that shit, it's like we could talk about that for the next fucking 6 hours.
Yeah.
But for me, being the young man, boots on the ground at the time, that's the decision I made. And it sounds weird to tell people this, but I enjoyed it. Man, it was fun.
I did too.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
deploying excited me. I liked being on the streets of Ramadi in '04 when every single day was a crapshoot. And I tell people that can't really that haven't experienced it or can't wrap their head around it, but it's like think about what most men do. Like I still to this day like jujitsu, where it's I'm going to compete against another man, and we're just going to find out who the better person is today. That is war at the highest level with the highest stakes. And when you're the fittest of your life and you're fucking young and wild and the stakes are high, it creates an environment where like the life you're living is literally everything because in a moment's notice I'm probably going to get snuffed out, you know? And
It allows you to be very present for sure.
allows you to be present, man, and build bonds with people in the way that you hadn't before and all that stuff. And it was when I look back at the wars, I don't even think they were necessary. I ask myself, like, why the fuck did we invade Iraq?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? And it's the United States that we inevitably have to play world police. But put that on the back burner. At the time, in '04, '05, '06, you had a bunch of young American men that wanted to get in a fight, and then you had a bunch of young Islamic men from all over the world themselves. Like when I was in Ramadi, the guys we were fighting were Syrian and Chechen and from Yemen. At the end of the day, it's just young, wild men with conflicting ideology. And let's just there doesn't even have to be a war. I tell people this all the time. You could say, hey, there's a small island off the coast of Africa that you can show up and we'll issue you kit. And we have two different sides. You can pick what side you're aligned with, and then we're going to fight each other to the death. Young men would go do it, bro.
Yep. And it's so funny that you say that because it's very true. And having a son of my own, like he's 6 years old, and that's all he talks about. He's literally probably dressed up in like gear right now, camo head to toe. He's got his rifle. He's out in the yard, like simulating like hunting things. Right. I feel so weird about the situation. I'll be honest. Cause I'm like, man, is this what Vietnam guys felt like? Like the transition in my brain has been one that took a while. Like, and I'm married to my wife specialized in Arabic and Islamic studies. And she was like what am I saying? She read like the terrorist scrolls and like, why is this escaping me? She read them in their language and then she translated them. God, why am I spacing? She translated like Arabic and Islamic text into English doctrine or whatever. And like, so she would read stuff coming out of these terror cells and then like relay it to who, like what their message was, why they were doing things. And so we've had such an interesting relationship because she was on board in like 2005 that like her whole theory about 9/11 hasn't really changed since then. But I was still gung-ho on 9/11 probably until about 2008 on like the why behind it and everything else. And So I was a tougher sell than she was, but she was reading what they were actually saying and like had a more reasonable brain about it rather than like fuck off at the time,
Let's
right?
just make the whole Middle Eastern
Yeah,
or the whole
right.
Middle East a parking lot. Let's
Yeah.
turn it into glass. Like all the same shit. Kill them all and let God sort them out. Like, bro, we
Yeah.
all got caught up in that shit, dude.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, don't get me wrong. Like, if you put me in a room with some ISIS fighters, nothing would warm my heart more than putting a fucking bullet into their brain to this
Yep.
day. Like, that's always hardwired into me. We're different, right? But I've also matured enough to realize, like, oh, we picked that fight and we were the bad guys, right?
Yeah.
Like now you can take Afghanistan and take that as you may, right?
Right.
I still don't think that we needed to be there for 20 years doing all the shit that we did, right? Um, use our specialized units, go in there, hunt our HVTs down, and fuck. Our mission isn't to fucking the operation enduring freedom and changing the whole trajectory of that fucking of that nation. That's not our responsibility.
Yeah.
But we found ourselves there, right? But Iraq was a completely different story, man. And it was crazy that like we got sold on lies to go in there and fucking start killing people. And then remember when they're like, "Oh, there was no weapons of mass destruction. I guess we were wrong. Whoops." And
Yeah.
no accountability. No one ever got fucking no one's feet got held to the fire for that. And that's why, bro. And I know I'm the outlier, right? In the fucking like conservative influencer space. Because
Sure.
everybody's like, fuck yeah, let's go to war with Iran and Hamas. And I'm like, guys, I'm not saying that Hamas is a fucking good group of people. But what I am saying, our media and our government have fucking lied to us in the past to pull us into these wars. Pump the brakes a little bit and
Yeah.
detach emotionally and try and see if there's a bigger picture going on. Because I just don't trust them anymore, man. And they earned that. The government earned that mistrust, especially over what they've done over the last 3 years. The media is not reliable. The messages that our elected officials tell us, they're always talking out of two sides of their mouth. And we've arrived at a point as Americans where it's like,
Like, are they evil people? Some of them, but
some of
there's
them.
some evil people in every pocket of society. And so
And bro, and why are they holding the beliefs that they hold? Why did they come to the conclusions that they came to? Like they have a side of the story too. And when America just always what have we literally said since we were kids? Why does the Islamic fundamentalists hate us? Because
yeah,
they hate our freedoms.
that's
What?
bullshit too.
It's bro, it's something to just trigger emotion in us and say, "Oh, well, they hate my way of life, so fuck them. So I hate theirs." You know?
That is the one thing when I talk about my wife and I having disagreements, that's the thing that she shoved in my face in probably 2005. She's like, they don't hate your freedom. That's not ever what it's been about.
Yeah.
In 1998 or 99, Osama bin Laden wrote like 12 things of the reason that he was going to destroy the West. And it was because of our occupation of
Yes, bro.
of their holy lands and things like that.
And
And if
dude,
you go down the list now, I'm like, holy fuck,
you're like,
he's
"Hey,
actually
bro, I
right.
I see where you're coming from." I
Yeah.
say that all the time. Like, if if some foreign army invades Lake Stevens, Washington, and is setting up blocking positions and
Yeah.
patrolling through the neighborhoods and giving me a curfew, guess what I'm going to be doing? Setting in IEDs and fucking ambushes because
100%.
this ain't your fucking place to tell me how to live my life.
Yep.
Oh, well, duh. So it's like, but I always say this too. I look back on it and I look back on it with like again, hindsight's 2020. And as we mature, we look at things a little differently. But I also don't regret it, man.
No, me neither.
Because at the end of the day, first of all, what can I do? Right. That was my experience. It brought me to where I am today. I'm proud of the person that I've grown into. And those conflicts and those hardships and those deployments, all that was part of building me to who I was. And you can't look back on your service. It's a double-edged sword. Your service can't define you, right?
Yeah.
Because if your
Yeah.
service defines you, and a lot of veterans are defined by their service, that's why we're seeing veteran depression, in my opinion.
Yep.
But you also can't regret it because it was what it was.
And honestly, this is a very powerful conversation because I think that that's very important because I think a lot of guys are finally waking up to the fact that we were sold a bill of fucking goods.
Yes.
And so they go back in their Rolodex of images and they're like, I did these things for a lie. And they make that like an indictment on their character and who they are. I did what I did with the information I had at the time.
Bro,
And
I use that verbatim almost because something in law enforcement, a phrase that is used in law enforcement all the time is the facts and circumstances known at the time.
Yep.
So if I make an arrest of somebody and I end up making a bad arrest because I misjudged something or I didn't understand the whole situation, but they look at it and they say, well, Greg, at this point in time, these are the facts that you had. So this is the conclusion you drew. That makes sense, right?
Yes.
We're not fucking psychic. We had the facts and circumstances in front of us at the time. And also, I mean, bro, we had the president of the United States. Like when you're a 22-year-old Ranger, George Bush literally met us at Fort
Yeah.
Bragg and
Same.
like came up and shook our hands and was like, I'm going to unleash you guys on them. And you go over there and you kick their asses. Bro, it's like, we think this is something fucking special. We think we're part of right. We're part of
Yeah.
freedom. We're part of changing the trajectory for good. And they have to sell it like that because most men inherently are drawn to the side of good. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I think that's just something that's inherent inside of us.
Yeah.
And so when we think we're drawn to good and we think we're defending good and we think we're repelling evil, man, we'll stop at no ends and we'll give our blood for that. That's why they have to sell it as that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Another thing I think that's eaten up the veteran community is the fact that, like, because when you admit to all this, right, you have to admit that, like, you have friends that are gone. We all do, right?
Yeah.
Like a bunch of people. Like I was at the initial invasion of Iraq, and a bunch of the guys in ACO, First Platoon, everything else, like at least half of them aren't even alive anymore. And like that's a big deal to reconcile when you understand that, like, these are just 22-year-old kids. And now I sit here at 44 and I'm like, fuck, man, as I raise my own kids and stuff like that. And like that shit can consume you too.
The shit's heavy for sure, man. But at the end of the day, man, it's funny because I told you I was at my buddy's cabin last night. We sat out on the beach and had this exact same conversation. It's like the one thing that war does help you with is it makes you understand life is finite.
Yeah.
And you see people fucking lose their life at an early age in their fucking early 20s. And it's like, for me, what it did is it really just helped me understand that's like, hey, every single one of us have bought that ticket and it's going to get punched. And
Yeah.
could it be tomorrow? Could it be today? Like maybe, but because you're intimate with that and you're familiar with it and you've seen it and you understand it, I actually look at that as something that sets me free because it's like, I don't let all the bullshit bog me down. I don't let all the fucking negativity and all the depression from the war and all the fucking things that like eat away at most veterans. I'm like, you know what, dude? Because people always talk about, oh, I want to live for them and honor them. You know how you do that? Is go live a life that fucking means something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Yeah, I just understand this ride that we're on is finite. It has a fucking expiration date, and between now and then, you have to be able to just enjoy the ride. And for whatever reason, veterans were able to enjoy that ride for a while, but then they come back and they interject themselves into normal society, and now they can't enjoy the ride anymore. And it's their fucking fault, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's powerful though, because like you think about the guys that are wasting their time, that are spending 10 years in the bottle and shit like that. I mean, we all had, I don't know about you, but I had my trouble transitioning, and like I struggled with certain aspects of things.
For sure.
And when you think about that, if you can reframe that into like you're wasting time, and any day could be that day you punch your ticket, like you're talking about. And so like to sit there and spin your wheels is not serving anyone, especially you, who has been given the gift of today, right? And so I think that that's a powerful message. That's why I'm so excited to hook up with guys like you and other veterans that are continuing to be successful and make productive moves, because
Yes.
I don't think this community is amplified enough. Like, hey, this guy went on and did a bunch of shit. Like, they only shine lights on like all the fucked up people under the bridge and like that are
Yeah.
struck with junkies and shit like that. And I'm like, there's a lot of us out here doing some shit. And like, I think that's a more powerful message that we need to be amplifying.
Yeah, bro. I'm to the point now where it's like I'm kind of irritated by veterans, if I'm being completely honest.
Same.
A lot of them, disabled veteran, which we all are to a certain extent, is become their identity. And what do they want to do? They want to get discounts, and they want to get fucking free hunting trips, and oh, I'm going to go ride a horse through the mountains because I'm a disabled veteran. But it's like it's more about take
Yep.
instead of giving back and growing. Like, bro, the war for most of us was a 4 to 10 year experience. And when you take a look at your overall life, bro, it's like it's one chapter of your book,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
But a lot of people allow that to be their whole life story. And it's like it fucking makes me sad. Because I tell you right now, bro, I have transitioned out of military, law enforcement completely, bro. I'm now an entrepreneur. I'm a small business owner. Um, and I fucking have found more pride and satisfaction watching kids learn jujitsu than I
Yeah.
ever did fighting men in war. And it's like, oh, I was chasing something on the other side of the world. And what I really needed was fucking right here at home. And it's more powerful, it's more meaningful. I'm contributing to my own society, my own people. And people have to figure out a way to do that. And a lot of people, it's funny because I talk about this on my show all the time. I get people to tell me, like, well, you don't understand, Greg, because you happen to have a skill set that allowed you to do this. Motherfucker, we all can have skill sets. It's a skill set. That means it's something that is learned,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of veterans put themselves in a box and it's like, oh, this is what I do or this is who I am until you decide to do something else. Go out there, learn a new skill, start a new career. Like you were saying before we started, that you're like, you've really jumped into the real estate world. Like professional goals, personal goals, fitness goals, everything keeps fucking going. Just because you went and did some crazy shit for a period of time, like it's like you remember Napoleon Dynamite, like Uncle Rico
Yeah.
talking about, oh, if coach would have put me in the fourth quarter. That's what these veterans are doing. It's
Oh,
like,
I know.
bro, it was fucking 20 years ago now that I was fighting in the streets of Ramadi. It has little to no bearing on where I'm going now. Does it give me perspective and did it give me some help me grow into the person I am? Of course it did. But so does every other aspect of your fucking childhood and your experiences as a young man. That's called fucking life, dude.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and and dude, these fucking veterans want 100% disability. And let me caveat that I am a supporter of you getting as high of a ranking as you can get from the VA. You went and did your time and you have issues. what it does is it allows them to be comfortable enough to
Yep.
where they're not hungry for the next thing. You got to go out there and get fucking hungry, man. You
Yeah.
know?
It's, I mean, it's a lot like the corporate world, if you will, or even welfare. And
Yes,
like it just
100%.
keeps you complacent. It's the golden handcuffs of good enough, but you could never succeed to like your wildest dreams
Well,
going
bro,
down.
you put on your fucking tinfoil hat. But I honestly think that those fucking golden handcuffs are by design, be it fucking VA, be it welfare. Like, we don't want people inspired and hungry to fucking become the most powerful versions of themselves. And I think we have an obligation to that, you
I
know?
believe that 100%. I believe that you're letting your family down, your wife down, like your kids down if you're not pursuing the limits of your potential on a daily, regular basis. Because, like,
And bro, for me, like, think about like one of the most foundational and present example of that is your physical body. Because you said like your program, you push fitness. I do too. As a coach
yep,
through my podcast, that's one of my biggest things. It's like the physical state of your being is the foundation for everything else, right?
yep,
How many dudes that you were in the army with that could blast a 300 PT test now look like they're pregnant? And it's like, bro, you're 40.
yeah,
Sure, we might be middle aged. We ain't old yet. There's no
right.
excuse for that. But again, it's just because they're not pursuing that personal excellence. Like
But you
if your best days are behind you, why do I need to be in elite shape?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I take a lot of heat for that, but like I can tell you a lot about a person based on how they look, 100%. And
Well, of course. It tells a whole story about that person,
yeah,
you know? And not just like their capabilities, but how they view themselves, you
yeah,
know? And people will say, like, oh, I've had people tell me like, "Well, you're just a genetic freak." And it's like, "Bro, you don't know how fitness works then because very few people get away with just being genetically gifted. Most people that look and can perform a certain way, it's not by accident. It's because they put in the work, right? So when you're someone that's willing to put in the work, the person next to you, you're shining a spotlight on their deficiency. So that's why they have to make those little gestures and those remarks. It's like, "Oh, well, you don't understand. You're just and then the insert whatever. It's like, oh, don't mind the fact that I fucking have counted every calorie and I'm in a deficit and I'm fucking starving. Like and I hit the gym and I have to do this many rounds on the mats. Like, you don't get fit by accident, you know?
not at our age,
No.
especially. Like
And bro,
the genetic freaks wear off by like 25,
that's
26.
right. Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah. That's right, dude. But
and to be
it's a
fit in
crazy
your
place.
40s is some work. It's an
It's a
investment. It's like
and
money.
when people see you in your 40s with a six pack, that's fucking like 1%er shit, bro.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, it shouldn't be. It should be called life. But most people have accepted that just, hey, the sedentary lifestyle and these poor choices and these unhealthy habits, like like they say, sitting's the new smoking. Most Americans sit so much that they're having chronic health issues because they're not walking enough. You know what I mean?
Yep. But I mean, to your point about the golden handcuffs and how that's by design, to keep you just above poverty level and happy enough. I think the same thing goes on, some misinformation, if you will, with regards to like what's healthy and what's fit,
Oh, of
because
course. Remember when
you
the government
see
said
all,
eggs are unhealthy?
yeah, yeah,
Lucky Charms are a better breakfast choice than eggs.
yeah,
And it's like, fuck, man. Like, and as an athlete, in my degrees in exercise physiology, like I went and did the official side of it too, which I didn't learn hardly anything. But fucking A, man, everybody knows
yep.
eggs are a fucking superfood, you know? And
But
so
if
I used to think the government was the government by incompetence. Like, oh no, you just got some goon in some office that was allocated the duties to, hey, go ahead and hey, you're an intern at the FDA and we need to release an updated food pyramid. And I want to go ahead and I want you to spearhead this. I used to think it was just the blind leading the blind and incompetence, but there's no way. a
Yeah.
motherfucker could say Lucky Charms are a better food choice than eggs. And it makes you land on this has to be by design. And some people think that's crazy, but fucking the last 3 years say otherwise, you know?
There's just too much compounding evidence of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I
saying.
I agree with you 100%. I used to think they were just dipshits in politics, and, like, I'm like, "They are so stupid," and then you kind of watch the trends, and you're like, "Holy shit, this could not be by mistake."
Yeah.
Like, this is not because of incompetence. This is obviously by design. And human nature is so soft now that, like, if there's an article written about it, like, you shouldn't exercise too much because it's bad for your knees or something, they can take that and they can make that their excuse for why they're not doing something. Overtraining and, like, um what is the term of, like, the when they're over 90% of people think they're overtraining all the time and they're just weekend warriors. I'm like, you don't even do nearly enough to overtrain.
Yeah,
Like,
you're nowhere fucking close
right.
to
And so
overtraining.
it
The human
it's
body is capable of so much more than people think, and so much more than I think. Like, I'm
yeah,
not one of those guys that's Cam Hanes or David Goggins. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna go run 200 miles to just see where the wheels fall off, you
yeah,
know? But men and women do that all the time.
yeah.
So for you to fucking sit there and say like, "Oh, I'm overtrained because my knees ache," it's like, motherfucker, welcome to life. Like, dude, that's it, you
Well,
know?
I don't think people have ever pushed their limits. Like, I know certainly we did in the military in certain training exercises. Most of the time shit was by accident. It went
Yeah,
sideways and it's like, fuck, you had to walk 35 miles out of that bitch with 65 pounds. It's because all the arsolves broke down or something.
yeah. Fuck, man.
Uh, but you're right. I mean, your body will do your mind quits far before your body quits on you.
Well, bro, and
It's
I'm here to tell you, because are you a jujitsu guy?
I've been
Okay.
back and forth, in and out.
So I'll tell you this, man. This is why jujitsu has become what it's become. It's growing exponentially.
Yep.
All your influencers, your Jocko, Rogan, and like they're pushing jujitsu for a reason, right? And what people are finding is a path to learn the lesson that you just talked about. Like, oh, this meat suit that I'm in, what's up here is really what's running the shop, and
Yeah.
I can push myself way past what I thought I could. I can go so far past my comfort zone, all the way into where you're like in fight or flight and feeling anxiety and like wanting to quit, and then realizing, oh, I'm actually I push myself to this new realm and I'm okay here.
Yeah.
And I can actually use this as a learning opportunity. And I tell people all the time, what you're doing is you're problem solving under high stress situations. Now, yes, it's a training partner. Yes, it's a friend of yours. So logically, you don't think like, oh, that would induce like a fight or flight scenario. But what people don't understand is once you've agreed to do a live round and that person's on top of you, strangling you, the fucking primalness inside you doesn't understand it's a training session. The primalness inside you feels like, oh fuck, I'm dying right now. And it forces you, I say this all the time, it forces you to find comfort in very uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
And bro, that lesson can be applied to your career, to how you interact with people, to your relationships, to how you parent, to literally everything. Like I can be in the storm and things there can be chaos around me, but inside I find myself and I become centered. And that's jujitsu, man. And I
Yeah.
know for people that hear it, they think we're a fucking crazy cult and it sounds like some fucking religion. But I promise you, I say it all the time. Give jujitsu 3 months of your life. And I've yet to meet the person that's done that and then said, you know what, I really regret that. That was a waste of my time. That person doesn't exist because all the lessons that I just spoke of are real. And once you feel those and you start to learn those and you start to understand those, own, do the things that challenges people. And when those people are to your left and your right, you inevitably build those special bonds. And it's fucking powerful, bro.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I love it. And I love to see how many people are hopping into jujitsu now. I mean, we've got tons of guys from my group that are getting into it, that are just regular business owners and
Yeah.
normal dudes that didn't have a background in combat sports, didn't have a background. I played college football before I went into Ranger Battalion. And so like I've done the contact sports my whole life. And so it was natural to me when the Gracies showed up and we started training and shit
Yeah.
like that, because I've been hit in the nose a bunch of times. And so but I do love it. I think that that outlet is necessary for so many people. I mean, we're two generations away from people who have even ever probably been punched in the face.
Isn't that nuts, bro?
It's wild to me.
Yeah.
Wild to me.
And I also think just having intimate connection with other human beings.
Yeah.
And when I say that, people think I mean like sexual intimacy. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just really sharing space with people. Like jujitsu, there's no hiding. Like
Yeah.
you're literally on top of each other. You're feeling each other's energy. And again, it's not sexual, but it's intimate and it forces you to be vulnerable. And bro,
Yeah.
all of these things, they help you grow as a person, you know?
There's bonds that come from suffering that really
Yeah.
can't really be described until you do them. I was thinking about that yesterday. Something came up, but like I was thinking about the avatar of like special operators and stuff like that. I think from the exterior, people all think everybody's Superman, but they're really not, because everybody breaks all the time, and I think that's what builds the camaraderie.
Voice inside your head saying, you can't do this. And then you have to, I literally, I feel like there's two fucking human beings inside of me and you're having this internal dialogue.
Yeah,
And bro, I've been a black belt for almost 10 years now. Like my jujitsu is very good. And I still get brought into these places sometimes where I have to revisit these emotions. It's a continuous thing, you know? And but that's where the growth happens, you
yeah,
know? And it's like there's a reason why in Ranger Indoc or fucking Buds or whatever, put any fucking special operations selection. What's the whole purpose of it? To see if we can make you quit.
yep,
You know, they want to see if being extremely uncomfortable and tired and hungry and put in a place where everything feels like it's going wrong, who shows up at that moment. And I can tell you, bro, I mean, you remember Cole Range going through RIP, like the log drill. And they're like, and I don't know fucking if every class is the same, but to my class, they're like, each squad pick up a log.
yep,
This exercise begins now and it does not conclude until we get two quitters. So you guys can be under the logs for 3 minutes, 3 hours, or 3 days. I don't really care one way or the other, but the logs stay in the air and you're out in the field until we get our two quitters. And bro, some people, that's their way out. And that's
yeah,
exactly what they're looking for. You know, it's
yep,
interesting, man. And here's the thing, we talk about like, I tell you, I have that internal dialogue about, I feel like I want to quit, but I won't. But at the same time, I always knew that that voice that wanted to quit, there's no way that motherfucker is going to get to dictate the outcome of this ever. You
yeah,
know, like I'd see guys walk up and in RIP, we don't ring the bell like they do in the SEALs, but for lack of a better term, I'd see guys finally fucking step up and ring the bell. And I remember, and guys that like, you know, you went through boot camp, airborne, like
yep,
AIT, like these are guys, you might have only known them 6.5 months, but you're close.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then you
yeah.
watch them quit at RASP or RIP. And it's like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
It says they found their breaking point, you know? But we all have that in us too. Make no mistake, man.
Sure.
You
Sure.
know?
Yeah. That's funny, man. Brings back so many memories. But I agree with you there for sure. Let's talk a little bit of finances because you wanted to discuss what you're currently working on, which is a pretty cool milestone. You're about to hit your PR month at the gym, and let's talk about that. Dig into a little bit of financial stuff because I
So,
love
yeah, I told you before we started recording, my November goal is to make $42,000 in the month of November. And that's through jujitsu, the podcast, our apparel line, like everything combined, right?
Yep.
But the reason I landed on that number is because that's what I made my first year as a deputy. My annual salary, $42,000. And this was 2011, bro. Like it wasn't super fucking long ago.
Right.
And I remember like, fuck, dude, I got hired. I'm a fucking deputy. I'm doing these badass missions and stuff. And I can't even afford to feed my fucking family.
Yeah.
And what I found is like they fucking sell the mission as honorable. You're a first responder. You're here to make your community safe. And it's like, man, I'd give my blood for this agency that won't even fucking give me enough fucking scraps to be able to feed my kids. And it's a weird place to arrive at because once I walked away from law enforcement, and I walked away in 2020 as a result of all the COVID stuff,
Right.
and I said, okay, now it's time to move on to something new. And I already owned my jiu-jitsu academy. That was like my hobby while I was a police officer. But moving forward, I was like, okay, this isn't a hobby anymore. This is going to become a viable source of income. And I've grown the academy to a point to where now, bro, I mean, I have 235 students. And we're growing at a rate that's almost like it's not sustainable. And bro, like the shirt that I'm wearing right now says microdose adversity. I have released like a small apparel line where I'll have things that come up on the podcast and then we'll make a drop and we'll, have like the no one's coming to save you shirts, the become ungovernable. And it's just these and they're cool shirts. And we take the time to source like high quality, comfortable materials and our hats and all that stuff. And bro, the apparel line alone is like making what I made as a police officer. If
Yeah.
you would tell cops like, hey, you could go start a t-shirt company, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But it's real. It's about exposure, networking, fucking putting out quality product, and all of these little things that are starting to come together now. And it's kind of like what we talked about. It's like with our bodies and our fitness and doing all the little things to make sure that everything is running smoothly. It's the same thing with business.
Yeah.
Like taking the steps to make sure a perfect example is like if you sell 10,000 t-shirts, one of them is going to have a string that comes unraveled and a fucking hole forms or something. You know what I'm saying? That's just life. And if someone sends us an email and says anything like that, there's another shirt in the mail the next day for them. And just building your reputation and your quality and your product. And it's fun to see like, oh, my whole life I thought 100 grand a year was like the benchmark for people that made it.
Yeah.
And then you learn there's people that are doing that every month. There's people that are doing that every day.
Yeah.
And it's all on just how large you're willing to think. And if you think bigger, bigger comes to you, bro. And it's fucking bizarre, but it's the truth.
100%. I've experienced that in my own life. I think I think the problem with most people is that they set their expectations too small of what they can become. And they've attached all these limiting beliefs on themselves that have been impressed upon us by society and all these different constructs, the school system, every other thing. Like, and oftentimes when you talk about doing hard things, like it's hard to go against the grain. I mean, you and I are going against the grain. We're counterculture in what we're trying to do and the messages that we're putting out, things like that. I think that it's easy to go take your disability check, or
Yeah,
it's
that's right.
easy to take a corporate job and take your 3% raise a year and understand that like that's good enough to buy the lowest series BMW and like I'm comfortable there and having bills that exactly equal how much I make in a month every
Yeah.
single month and
And
no
bro,
real upside.
there's also a side of society that wants to like, oh, talking about money is like
Yeah.
taboo, like wanting to get rich. Like, I mean, when you hear like, oh, that he's a rich guy, what do
Yeah.
people think immediately? Like, oh, he's slimy, he's sleazy, he's fucking somebody over.
Yep.
Like, why does he get to have the money? Like victim mentality, right? And now I've realized, like, bro, and that's why I like talking about this and talking about money because I'm not fucking rich, but I'm getting there and I'm comfortable. I want other people, bro. There's no shortage of room at the top. Everybody can be entrepreneurs. Everybody can fucking build a brand. Everybody can fucking grow and make investments and do these things, but they want to keep people thinking small. And so I tell people, like when I started my podcast, I had no I had no vision of the podcast necessarily being like a financially viable thing. Here we are 3 years later, and do you ever go to Listen Notes? Do you know what that is?
Uh-uh.
It rates every podcast in the world,
Oh,
and it shows you what percentage you fall in. And my show is already in the top 0.5 percentage of shows worldwide.
oh, that's amazing.
Now, I always say this: there's millions of shows that get fucking 100 downloads or less. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So, like, you don't have to do exceptionally well to be at the top of the heap.
Sure.
But the thing is, as soon as you are ranked above most other shows, now it's a viable income source to partner with fucking companies.
Yep.
And dude, we sold out every advertisement slot for 2023 6 months ago, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, there's one more little thing. So now we got t-shirts, we got sponsorships, we got partnerships, and every little bit starts to add up. And before you know it, you're fucking free and you don't have to answer to another man. You don't have to fucking you make your own schedule. You live on your terms. And that's what we're supposed to be doing, man.
100%. 100%. I'm 100% convinced that people won't do it because they don't have the ability to stay in the fight long enough. And because money is easy. Like it's the easiest thing that I talk about with my guys in my group. Like it's way harder to fix your family and then everything else. Like I can make you money on the back
Yeah.
end because and the other thing that people don't understand is they're willing to quit within like 4 to 6 months, but like they don't understand if they'll do 4 to 40 years, you're inevitable. You become inevitable. Like
Yeah.
even if you only increase your revenue by $100 a week over a period of time, 20 years into that mission, you're going to be making a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
And
Well, bro, and I
so,
tell people like my jiu-jitsu academy is a perfect example of that. I opened it in 2015.
yep.
From 2015 to 2020, it barely was in the green.
Okay.
Like it was the amount of money that it generated would basically keep the lights on and it was almost a wash, right?
Paid for itself. Yep.
I get fired over my speaking out against COVID. And in 2020, I put all of my eggs into that basket and the gym grew by 600% in 1 year. And that for me was like, oh, fuck, dude. And then it's like, well, why didn't I do that earlier? But I
Yeah.
honestly think you have to grow to a certain point and you have to be hungry enough to want it enough to put the energy into it. And until you want it enough, it just doesn't happen, you know? And
Yeah.
so it was, but once you see the formula that works, it becomes exponential, man.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. And I wish more people would realize that and bet on themselves because truly that is how you live a life of freedom. And I think truly we're all supposed to live free. And we don't do things on a regular basis intentionally to take back that freedom enough, in my opinion.
Bro, there's not a better feeling in the world. And this is the thing, it's not about how much money you have.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I want to make a bunch of money because with money becomes opportunity, right? And then you can do more things and affect more people's lives. But at the end of the day, it's the journey you're on. And when you're on a journey, walking the path on your own terms, that's freedom, man.
Yep. 100%. And money's just an amplifier of who you are. And so like you can make a much larger impact. That's why to me teaching financial education is super important. And because like some simple concepts that I teach people are like very unknown. They obviously don't teach them in school, but like even I came through the corporate world for a bit and like went with all the qualified plans that everybody knows, your 401ks, your 529s, your Roth IRAs, and those things are bullshit. And they are
Uh-huh.
such bullshit. They are just those are so skewed in the favor of the banking systems because they're like, we'll take your money, we'll invest it for 40 years, and then we'll give you back a pittance of it at the end. And it's just such a racket. And so, like, what I'm teaching people more and more is how to take control of their money. $1,000 in 20 years or
Mhm.
$10,000 in 20 or 30 years. I think I can do more with my money today in my control than I can in 40 years. And
Well,
so
bro,
go ahead.
everybody wants to outsource everything. They
Yeah.
want to outsource their health, they want to outsource their finances, and they want somebody else to make sure that everything's going to be okay. And that's where like our best-selling shirt, the "No One's Coming to Save You" shirt that we sell comes from because that's the truth. Like you need to fucking take charge of your life and your situation and your trajectory. And once you do that, fuck, man, that's when everything starts to come together, you
Yeah.
know?
Because it naturally builds confidence though. It's empowering. And then you just see like it's we talk about stacking wins all the time. It's the same fucking type of thing. Like you go out and you learn a little bit about your finances and you take a little bit more control of your situation and you stand a little bit different. Your shoulders are a little bit further back and you feel like you can take care of yourself. I mean the ineptitude of like depending on someone else to do everything for you, it neuters you over time. Like I don't care who you are. If you feel like you can't take care of yourself, you're beholden to someone else.
And then, bro, that's why, like, I don't give a fuck about a 401k or all of my fucking retirement plans or all that bullshit, dude. Like,
Yeah,
we want to invest in, and like, we just bought a big piece of property that we want to build like Airbnb cabins on, things
love
like
it.
that. Like, build my own retirement fucking plan, you
Yep.
know? And I watched my dad do that too. Like, he was a fucking middle school dropout that like you wouldn't think like this guy was going to make it work, but he did because he worked hard. And he always said that, like, I don't need a fucking to rely on social security or some fucking pension. You make your own retirement. And he did it with rental properties.
Yep.
And it's not that hard of a concept to understand, you know? And bro, here's another one that's funny. Landlords, they're evil people now, you
Yeah.
know? It's like, oh,
Oh, I
wait,
know.
but you mean people that provide fucking housing for people? You're the bad guy? Oh, but it's because you're making a profit, you know? And it's like, well, if you don't like that, go buy your own fucking house.
Yep.
But if you want to rent from me, this is what it's going to look like. You know, it's crazy, dude.
Yeah. It really is. And yeah, we could go on for
And
days.
up here, bro, up here in Washington, all of these new like landlord laws,
Yeah,
it's like your fucking house that you've decided to rent to this person, it's almost like it ain't your fucking house anymore,
I know.
you
Yeah.
know?
Private property rights have been eroded up there big time. You and I should get together offline. I've got some ideas for your tiny home community, Airbnb
Yep.
thing
Please share. I would like that.
for sure.
use whatever platform you've created. It doesn't even have to be social media. It can be your fucking dinner table. It can be having a barbecue with your neighbors. If you're a person that's willing to speak and share your ideas and your thoughts and your desires, and you can be authentic with it, what you're going to do inevitably is give other people a pass to do the same, because most people are reluctant to be authentically them. If we all do this collectively, bro, that's what sets humanity free. It's not fucking, oh, we need to kill this guy and I want to go to war with this country. It's like, if we could all just realize we all want a similar thing, give or take, and we want to pursue our passions and our dreams. We want to see our family prosper. We want to see our communities thrive. Put your energy into that and it starts fucking happening. But if you put your energy into CNN and who's going to win the fucking presidential race, it keeps you in a low vibration and it keeps you from ever fucking succeeding. And again, I'm to the point where I think it's all by design. Force feed us propaganda through our fucking computers and through these things. And it keeps you, the useful idiot, while all these motherfuckers rise to the top and are getting rich off of our backs. Bro, we got to be done with that. Let's get rich off our own backs and rise each other up. And fucking, like I say, rising tides lifts all ships. If we all share this, I think there's a future that's fucking powerful. But if we don't, fucking the future looks bleak, man. And it's up to us. And we got to do it right fucking now, man.
I agree. And I think that's why it's important. What you're doing is important. What I'm doing is important. What Mike's doing is very important. I think we just have to amplify our messages and keep them going, because people respect you, and that, like, it gives them a sense of comfort when you'll voice your opinion. They feel comfortable voicing their opinion.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in my own life.
Another one of my fucking sayings is courage is contagious.
Yes.
And
100%.
if you do something courageous, that gives the people that are closest to you a pass to step up and say, I can be courageous too. But someone has to be first, you know? And that fucking person is probably the person that's looking at you in the mirror. So don't fucking wait. Take the opportunity. Say your truths. And you know what? It might upset your boss. It might make your fucking wife pissed off. That's okay though, because that's part of the path of becoming fucking true to yourself. And the right people are going to be attracted to that message. The wrong people are going to be repelled by it. And then that's a win-win, man.
Yep. That's how you free yourself in life.
That's how you fucking
for sure.
free yourself, man.
All right, guys, we will share Greg's information in the show notes. Get a hold of this guy, follow him, listen to his podcast. He's putting out a great message. I really appreciate you, bro. I know you got to get going, but thank you for your time. I hope we can do this again in the future.
Bro, I had a good time. I appreciate it. And seriously, I enjoy doing other people's shows because, again, rising tides lifts all ships. If we can get each other's messages out there and grow the network and grow the tribe, that's what it's all about. And so anytime you'd like to have me on, bro, I'm happy to hop back on.
Perfect. I will take you up on that. Guaranteed.
All right, brother.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Tactical Empire.